It's 1980 in Texas. A rookie cop arrests a mysterious man and confiscates a piece of strange equipment. On the phone with the sheriff, he describes it as some kind of oxygen tank. Before hanging up, he says everything is under control. Those are his last words, of course. Sneaking up behind him, the prisoner uses the handcuffs to put him out of his misery. Then he grabs the tank and helps himself to a police car. Now that's not the best vehicle for a wanted man, so he picks a random victim on the highway. The sound of police sirens is enough to get the driver to obey instructions sheepishly, even though the stranger is putting little effort into the performance. That's when we learn that the bizarre equipment is not an oxygen tank at all. Not far from there, we meet Llewellyn Moss. He's that kind of guy who never gives up, especially when he should. That's why he's out hunting again, despite his zero skills. Walking back to his car, he sees what looks like a few abandoned trucks and decides to check it out. It's easy to see that something awful has happened here. Bodies and weapons are scattered all over the place. The only survivor is a Mexican guy who's badly wounded and begging for some water. Moss says he can't help him. Taking the man's gun, he checks the back of his truck and finds it packed with drugs. This is clearly some kind of deal gone terribly wrong. And someone must have won this fight, so Moss decides to check if that person is still around. Through the binoculars, he spots a pair of legs under the nearest tree. He makes sure to time how long the man is sitting unnaturally still. Once determined that he's no longer a threat, it's safe to come closer and grab some more freebies. Inside a black briefcase, he finds about $2 million in cash and obviously decides to grab that too. Night is falling when he gets to the trailer park. He hides one of the stolen guns under his motorhome before coming in. His wife Carla Jean is not happy at his long absence today. She asks how much he paid for that flashy new gun and what's in that black case. He tells her the truth, knowing very well that she would never believe it. Hours later, Moss is still awake in his bed. His good fortune is tainted by remorse, and he can't stop thinking about that thirsty Mexican that he has so coldly ignored. So he gets up in the middle of the night and fills up a gallon with water, telling Carla Jean he's going out to fix something. He drives all the way there only to find that his friend no longer needs any water. Heading back, he sees a second truck parked near his own. He tries to hide, but their vehicle is equipped with bright lights, and they seem fully prepared for this kind of situation. So now he's running for his life as the strangers repeatedly fire at him. Hit in the shoulder, he falls into the river and makes it to the other side with great effort. There's still a pit bull after him, but this time the target is too close to miss. Meanwhile, that guy with the chick hairstyle is at a gas station. The attendant is a middle-aged man who's a bit too talkative, asking more questions than he should. What could have been a brief interaction becomes something that this man will surely remember later on, when the cops come to ask around. To make things worse, he's the kind of person who can't recognize a threat when he hears one. He looks very confused at the customer's ominous remarks in a menacing tone. The killer begins to grow impatient at such a dense victim. So that man's fate is decided in a coin toss. It turns out that it's his lucky day. He even gets to keep the lucky quarter. That night, Moss finally begins to grasp the magnitude of his mistake. He sends Carla Jean to spend some time with her mother in Odessa and promises to join her as soon as he can. When she asks him how long they're gonna be on the run, he asks her how long she thinks a person will keep looking for that kind of money. Dude's got a point there. Out in the desert, two men are explaining the situation to the hitman. We learn that his name is Anton, and he is famous for his extravagant but unfailing methods. While he examines the scene, with special attention to Moss's truck, they tell him about the missing briefcase. It's been rigged with a tracking device, but no signal is showing up on their end, for some reason. Once Anton has all he needs, he eliminates both of his potential employers with one of the pistols left in the ground. In the morning, Sheriff Bell borrows a horse from his wife Loretta so that Deputy Wendell can ride with him. Looking into the trail of chaos that Anton left behind, they also stumble upon Moss's truck and the sheriff recognizes the vehicle. The drugs are gone by now, and Bell suspects something similar happened to the payment. At Moss's home, Anton uses the weird gun to blow the door open. The couple is gone by now, but they left many clues behind, like that phone bill with several calls to Odessa. He tries to find out where Moss works, but the trailer park manager refuses to tell him. That lady's life is saved by a toilet, as Anton decides to leave her alone when he hears someone flushing too close. Not too long after that, Sheriff Bell also pays a visit to the cozy motorhome. While he inspects the busted lock, Deputy Wendell is upset to see they had just missed whoever broke in. The officers begin to wonder what kind of people might be after Moss and wonder if he's aware. We know he actually is, but no one could say that, judging by his goodbye speech to Carla Jean. He tells her not to worry. She's about to retire at a very young age, and that's a reason to celebrate. Sending his best to her mom, who apparently hates his guts, he swears they'll be fine, and then gets a cab to Del Rio. The Regal Motor is the cheapest motel available, and that suits him just fine. No reason to get fancy this soon, especially when people are paying attention. He calls his friend Roberto Sagramore, looking to borrow his car, but gets the answering machine. Little does he know that Anton is also on the phone right now, talking to Carla Jean's mother. Llewellyn Moss is not a strange name to her, and that gives Anton a pretty good idea of his opponent's next steps. Before hiding his treasure in the air duct, Moss takes some of the cash to buy himself a pair of boots. But when he gets back, one of the trucks parked at the Regal Motor looks a bit suspicious, and he decides to spend the night in a different motel. At the police station, Deputy Wendell tells the sheriff the feds have arrived. He also says something very strange about the body on the highway. Although there's only an entry wound, no bullet has been found. Sheriff Bell says that makes absolutely no sense. After buying a shotgun and some camping supplies, Moss is back at the Regal Motor asking for an extra room. He takes the one right before the original room because of the shared air duct. Putting all his DIY skills to good use, he turns parts of the camping stuff into some kind of fishing rod. At the same time, Anton is on his way to Del Rio with the tracking device on the passenger seat. The receiver begins to beep at some point, leading him right to the Regal Motor. Driving slowly past each door, he can tell where the money is by how fast the thing beats. He makes sure to check into the next room and removes his boots before tiptoeing to the neighbor. To his surprise and ours, there are 3 Mexicans in the room, ready to ambush Moss. Anton takes them all down, but Moss can hear the gunshots while he's using the homemade tool to retrieve the briefcase. After carefully searching the room, Anton gets to the air duct and immediately knows what happened. But by now, Moss is back on the road, hitchhiking to the next town. Next day, in Dallas, an arrogant businessman is talking to a bounty hunter named Carson Wells. There's been an unfortunate incident where a large sum of money has vanished, and his customer's entire order is also missing. The name of Anton Chigurh is tied to all that, and Mr. Wells is one of the few people who know him. He describes him as a dangerous psycho, but nothing that can't be dealt with in this line of work. So the businessman decides to hire Wells to do just that. At the Eagle Pass Hotel, Moss gets a room for the night. He pays the clerk a little extra to keep an eye out for shady-looking guests that may arrive after him. Once again, Moss is unable to sleep, trying to keep track of all loose ends. He begins to inspect the black case and finds the transponder. Now strange noises are coming from the hallway, and the clerk who's supposed to be at the front desk until morning is not answering the phone. Moss grabs the shotgun and turns off the lights, waiting for the worst. The automatic lights keep going on and off, and someone's shadow appears under the door. Then it all goes dark again, right before the lock is blown off the door, hitting Moss in the stomach. He fires at the intruder and jumps out the window. Never letting go of the briefcase, he flags down a passing truck and gets inside. The driver is hit by Anton as soon as he starts the engine, so Moss is forced to take the wheel from his seat and ends up crashing. He hides behind a car where he can see the reflection on a store window. That gives him the upper hand when Anton comes, and he shoots first. Anton escapes, but Moss can see he's wounded as well. Sticking to old habits, he grabs his rival's gun before driving away. Stumbling across the Rio Grande Bridge, he offers a kid $500 for his jacket. And then he has an idea and asks for the kid's beer as well. After hiding the money the best way he can, he pretends to be a drunk Mexican and has no problem crossing the border. A Norteño band wakes him up at dawn. These guys are a cheerful lot, but their enthusiasm is challenged by the gory sight. While he's taken to a hospital, Anton tends to his own wound as only a criminal would, exploding a car outside the drugstore so he can get the stuff he needs. He then proceeds to give himself stitches like a pro. At the station, Sheriff Bell asks about the updates on the case. His assistant says all the vehicles involved were registered to people who have been dead for decades. She also says the DEA agent has called again. He wants to discuss the case, but Bell has different plans. He asks her to call Loretta and let her know that he's gone to Odessa to see Carla Jean's mother. And he's not the only one closing in on the happy couple. Carson Wells is the first one to visit Moss at the hospital, making it clear that he knows all about the money. He says he's impressed that someone else has survived an encounter with Anton. But all his efforts into some kind of deal falls into deaf ears, just as expected. There's no way he's giving up on the jackpot, no matter how much protection Wells can offer him. He does look a bit worried when he mentions the possibility that Anton is in Odessa as they speak. It's obvious he had not thought about that, but he soon resumes the daredevil attitude and says Anton is the one who should fear him. Luckily, it's Sheriff Bell who is in Odessa right now. He meets Carla Jean at a restaurant and tries to convince her that Moss is in danger. Talking to her, the sheriff accidentally figures out how Anton manages to leave no bullets behind. That odd tank is actually a captive bolt pistol, commonly used to slaughter livestock. Meanwhile, Carson Wells is taking his time to cross the border bridge. Finally, he sees the briefcase partially hidden. Returning to the hotel, he senses the presence of an old friend coming up the stairs right behind him. Anton's huge gun easily gets him an invitation to Carson's room. The bounty hunter tries to bribe in many different ways, but to no avail. The man is insane and a slave to his own methods. When Moss calls Carson, he's already gone, and it's Anton who picks up. He says Carla Jean's life is the best he can get in exchange for the money, as they both know he won't make it out of this alive. Moss immediately flees the hospital. He only gets to cross the border because he can prove he served in Vietnam. Entering the same store where he got the boots a few nights ago, he says now he needs the rest of the outfit. Once he's fully dressed, he calls his wife. They arrange to meet at Desert Sands Motel in El Paso so he can give her the money and put her on a plane. The idea is to make him less vulnerable while chasing Anton to get rid of him once and for all. When she asks if her mother is also in danger, Moss pauses to consider his answer and then says, "Nah, she'll be fine." In Dallas, Anton is at the office building, and we can see he treats everyone equally across the pay grade. His issue with the boss is that he hired multiple people to get the same job done. That's how the Mexicans found the Regal motor room. They also had a transponder. We have to agree that the man did overdo it. He may have hired every man in Mexico for all we know. We now see 3 more are in a car following Carla Jean. Her mother is furious at everything her son-in-law is putting them through. One of the Mexicans offers to help with her luggage, and she is delighted to meet a real gentleman, sparing no information about her, her daughter, and their destination. Carla Jean is on a payphone, talking to Sheriff Bell. She fears for Moss, but doesn't want to get him into trouble. Bell promises he only wants to help, and she tells him where her husband will be. When the sheriff gets to the Desert Sands Motel, it's already too late. He only gets to see a group of Mexicans leaving in a hurry as the screaming begins. Moss is lying lifeless on the floor, and he's not even the only casualty. Carla Jean gets there at night and breaks down, guessing the truth. Belle returns to the crime scene later, missing Anton for very little. The money is already gone. Sheriff Bell visits his uncle to vent about society and all that. He can't take this anymore and decides to retire. This is no country for old men like him. Sometime later, Carla Jean loses her mother as well. At least this one died of natural causes. When she gets home, Anton is waiting for her. She's not that surprised, but swears she doesn't have the money. In fact, she was barely able to pay for her mother's burial. Anton already knows that. There is nothing he wants from her, and she does not pose a threat to him in any way. He is here because he gave his word. He told Moss he would come after her, and he must keep that promise. That's how crazy this dude is. He says the best he can do is to toss a coin, but she refuses to call it. That's a cheap trick to blame fate for his decisions. Anton rolls his eyes as if he has heard this one too many times. When he leaves the house, he stops to check his boots, which indicates that the coin didn't go in her favor. Right after that, Anton gets in a car crash but survives. He pays a young boy for a piece of his shirt and to keep quiet when the cops show up. Then he gets up and leaves. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2017 movie No Country for Old Men by Paramount, starring Javier Bardem and Tommy Lee Jones. So, what do you think of the ending? What would you do if you ever met Anton? Let us know in the comments below with #Cinemarca. Until next time.